you been to that bench before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you know when I see something new.
You missed all the geo. Okay, so you have to make that jump somehow, right?
That jump?
Yeah.
I'll be making that jump.
Right, but... you're pretty close.
Where's this boss?
I mean, it's further in, like...
I think this is new.
Yeah, this looks new, right? You haven't broken that vine yet.
That vine that I break?
You can, right? Like, I believe those vines, once broken, stay broken forever, so... Yeah, you just break those vines.
What? Don't look at me.
So you found it.
I guess. I just have this feeling that I'm going to cut a vine and then regret it.
I don't think... Maybe they don't stay broken forever.
Sick combo, bro.
Oh, there's a map there. Oh, you can see the I never noticed that the maps lead to him. Those little pieces of paper.
Make him noise, Gucci.
Like, I just now realized that those are pieces of paper that are left by him that lead to him.
Oh man, it's on now. Is it on, Jerry?
Yeah. So why not?
Thank you for your support. Oh man, sneaky, sneaky. Rose for life.
You found him.
What's the sledge? Somebody got paid to make the sledge. What me? So you're gonna take it over after the boss here, right?
Maybe. So have you played any of the older Zelda games?
I haven't beaten any of them, I don't think. But I played... I played like Oracle of Ages.
That's after, though.
Yeah, Link to the Past. I mean, like, I've played, like, the old Zelda ones, but I don't remember them that well. I did not play Zelda 2
Zelda 2 is really good.
for more than, like, 10 minutes.
I think Zelda 2 actually is really good, but...
You're saying I should give Zelda another shot?
No, it's not. I think both Zelda 1 and 2 are really dated, like, if you didn't play them... Like, if you go into them now, expecting a really good game, like, probably not worth it. It's probably not gonna happen, but... Both Zelda 1 and Zelda 2 have similar problems of being really... obtuse. Like, it's really hard to figure out what to do.
I'm not gonna make it, am
I mean, this was the jump, right? So is there nowhere else in the green area?
I mean, there is. I couldn't get over the thing. Knock down the vine.
No, that's what I'm saying. So that area and then this area up here, you've explored it everywhere?
Exit up there, and there's an exit down here.
I think you can get to that vine. You have to just go around somehow, right?
I don't know. Wait, check.
Like that little vine is just to allow you to like shortcut unlocked kind of thing.
Oh, come.
Yeah, see, these vines stay broken forever. So yeah, because they don't ever, because they're broken forever, there's no bad vine to break.
Not necessarily true.
I mean, it might be true that you might miss an item or something if you break a vine too early, but because of the way that is, you know that they're not going to make it. The game's unbeatable because you broke this vine. So yeah, you see you're supposed to break that vine to get down there?
What?
Those vines up there,
Up where?
above you.
Oh. Oh, okay. I was not putting that together.
So like I said before, if you ever see a vine, just break it every time. There's, you know? Like that's what the game's telling you by not ever regenerating them.
Probably a better way to do that.
I don't know, you're at full health, seems fine to me.
Full med. Or health. That's just dirty.
You could see the spikes before you jump there.
I couldn't. I didn't say it wasn't fair, I said it was dirty.
That's
No,
what you're saying. That's
getting mixed up, man.
so what does dirty mean in that context?
Because you shouldn't be doing it.
That's not what that means in any context.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not what that. You could infer that's what you shouldn't be doing based on hearing that, but that's not what that means by definition, you know?
I don't know, obviously, because I'm using it the way I'm using it.
No, you're backtracking. You originally said that as that isn't fair, and then you said, oh, I guess you could see them afterwards.
That's not
If
what
you-
I'm communicating at all.
If it was true that you couldn't see those spikes beforehand,
Right.
then that would be unfair. And that would be dirty. That's what you thought was the case, but that wasn't the
Well,
case.
no, because it opens up the whole thing before you ever step in. There's no way that it was going to be unfair.
No, when you make the jump, it could be that you make the jump overshooting it and then not realizing there's spikes there, and then it's too late before you even realize it.
Don't jump into dark holes.
It didn't even look like a dark hole, it looked like a ledge. And then
I was going there because I thought there was a path there.
well, regardless of what you thought, there was no way to tell that for sure. You know, you could look at that. If it was hiding the spikes, it could just look like a little ledge. You know.
But no, I wasn't saying it wasn't fair, I was just saying it was dirty. But it was different from the other one.
So what does dirty actually mean?
Bad form. Undesirable behavior. But I don't care about games being fair, like that's not a thing that's important.
I mean, I'm trying. Like, saying that's dirty doesn't mean it's bad game design, you know, it could just mean unfair, and then you got tricked, and that's good, you know? You could like games being unfair and tricky, you know? And that'd be a good game to you. Right, so being dirty isn't negative there, but it could still mean unfair to you. That's what you could still be saying, you know?
Right, but the fairness doesn't matter.
Right, and then that doesn't, that's what I'm saying, like, it doesn't...
That was different.
So what exactly is dirty? What you're doing, what the game is doing?
What the game's doing. When I jump here to avoid the explodey guy and I hit these, that's dirty.
That's unfair.
It's fair, I can see them with my eyeballs. There's nothing wrong with this situation. It's definitely my fault for dying. But the developers are mean. Like,
So that's different still from what you said initially before. Well, how are the developers they mean by putting those spikes there?
killed me.
They didn't kill you, they did 1 point of damage.
Did I have to go back?
No.
No, they killed me. What? You can't jump across there either?
Nope.
Okay. I give up. I'm sorry. No, but do you actually not understand what I'm saying?
I think you said like 4 different things
I
each
said
time you
one
said.
thing, one time. Like, I mean the same thing I always mean, because I say that's dirty a lot.
Right, and you've always meant it in the context of that's tricky.
Yeah.
Tricky is unfair inherently, that's what that means, you know?
No, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing unfair about being tricked. You got outsmarted, you got outplayed. That doesn't
But-
mean it wasn't fair, it just means you suck.
Those are 2 different things. Being outsmarted and outplayed is different from being tricked.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
What was that? You were deceived. There's nothing unfair about deception. You don't get deceived if you don't get outsmarted.
That's what... No, you do. Like, being outsmarted and outplayed is different from being deceived or tricked.
How so?
Being tricked means they abuse something that you could not have known or didn't have any way of knowing beforehand. And then they use that.
No.
Yes, that's what that means.
You take things that people think for dumb reasons all the time and turn that into a deception based on that. But there's plenty of ways they could have known that. Like, you use what they do know, not what they could know.
I mean, if it's something they could know but don't, that's not tricking them. That's just, you know.
If you know that they don't know, that's deception. Outsmarting them.
That's not outsmart. That's outsmarting is completely different. You
How
know.
is that different?
Like, outsmarting involves both people being fully aware, and you know the person doing the outsmarting is, you know, outsmarting him. You know,
Outsmarting relies on you knowing more than the other person. Or knowing something that they don't know. But to do that, you have to know what they know. The deception is when you use that to get an advantage instead of just having an advantage inherently. If I abuse what I know that you don't know, that's a deception. Right?
Right. That's not outsmarting though.
How is it not outsmarting?
I guess it depends on the context of like what knowing is. But
Like, give me an example of a deception and how it's not outsmarting.
so, I think a really obvious example of outsmarting that is in no way deception is, you know, beating someone at chess. You know, like you outsmarted them, but both players know everything in that situation. You know, there's no unknown knowledge.
I mean, to have a winning chess strategy, you kind of rely on them not knowing what you're doing, right?
Everyone knows what you're doing in chess, though. Everything's out in the open.
And I don't understand chess at all. Like, what is the point if you both know what you're doing?
It's outsmarting the opponent.
Right, so what does outsmarting look like if not doing things they didn't expect? Like, wouldn't you
What?
want to make them think you're doing one thing and then do another?
Pretty much, but that's not tricking them.
That's a deception.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That's not a deception because the opponent knows everything that you could possibly do, you know? In any given situation.
If you lead them to believe you're going to do one thing and then do another, you haven't deceived them?
Well, you're not leading them to believe anything, you're just doing things in chess, you know? Like, there's no way, unless you talk to your opponent and tell them, I'm gonna move this pawn here next turn. You know, you're not leading them to believe anything, you're just making a move. Your opponent sees the move you made, and they see all the possible moves you could have made, and that you could make in the future, in any given situation.
I super don't agree with that.
What's there to disagree with? Those are the facts.
No, in every game ever, you do things that you know your opponent's going to read a certain way. You don't have to talk to them. Like, you can open with a proxy gateway and then show up with a bunch of carriers.
That's
you don't
why-
have to say anything.
That's completely different, because that has unknown information, you know? And there's, again, I don't think that's deception either. There's a lot that goes into that, but I think that's, you know, there's more details. I think chess is a really simple way to explain the same concept. Because there is no unknown information whatsoever. Everything is in the open. The opponent sees everything you do, everything that you've done, and everything that you can do in every possible situation. There's no like, you can't deceive someone in chess. For the same reason, you can't really deceive someone in StarCraft unless they're, you know, willingly be deceived. You know, they're not.
I don't know, man. Deception's pretty important. Making people think you're going to do one thing and doing another is kind of how you win stuff. Like, if you could just play straightforward with them knowing everything you're doing and win, that I think speaks to some imbalance of some kind.
Imbalance in chess?
Yeah, like, I'm saying you have to deceive people to get the advantage. If you do exactly what they expect you to, then you should lose, right? If they know what you're gonna do.
So how do you explain chess then?
I don't, because I don't play chess.
So then you can agree that you're... I mean, it's not just chess specifically, but it's anything with that same rules, you know, with similar rules. Where everything is out in the open and available, you know.
If I'm playing Go, I'm gonna try to make you think I'm doing something or not doing something, and then do that thing.
And those are inherently unwinning strategies. You can't do that in a game like chess or
Yes,
Go.
that's why I'm bad at games. I try to deceive people.
Like, I mean, I guess I think trying to deceive someone is inherently a bad strategy that doesn't really work when people really know the game. Because you can't deceive someone, you know?
You never try to bait people in fighting games. You never try to make them think you're gonna do something and then do something else.
Right, so I think that's another level that's also not deception. So in games where there is unknown knowledge, it's still not deception because
What's the unknown knowledge in a fighting game?
what you're going to do. That actually is completely unknown knowledge.
How do you know in chess what the other person's going to do?
Well, the thing is, you don't need to know what they're going to do, you know? You can make actions in chess, and it doesn't matter what they do, because what they do afterwards, you have all the time in the world to react to. But, so, I guess what they're going to do is different than what is happening on that exact frame. Like, what they did 2 frames ago. You have no way of knowing the next frame, you know? Things like that.
I don't know. I guess I just don't understand.
So say in a fighting game, you know, you're sitting there, you know, blocking your opponent. They're doing a series of moves, and then they did something where you have to guess. You know, they did a move, and you don't know what the move they just did is you can't react in 3 frames, and the beginning 2 frames of the animation look the same for 2 different moves. You know, one's a low, one's an overhead. You can't possibly react to that. You know. You can agree? You can't react in 1/60th of a second.
Okay.
So you have to make a guess, basically. Did they do an overhead or did they do a low? That's unknown knowledge, you know, you can't know. And one of the ways, you know, you beat people in fighting games is force those situations and then make them guess. And trick them into thinking you're going to do one, but you do the other. Trick them, you know.
Okay,
That's
but like what you just said, trick them into thinking you're going to do one, and then do the other. The same as having 2 possible moves in chess.
No, it's not. Because
Like, I understand the difference you're making, but I don't think it applies to what you're actually saying there.
it's not.
Because
So
that
it
would be
is.
tricking them based on what you did, which is not what you're doing.
What?
Like, the timeline doesn't matter there.
It does, because in chess,
Like, after I've thrown a low, I can't convince them I've thrown a high after I've done it.
exactly, but you have to know what it is before it happens.
Huh?
You have to know whether or not it's a low or a high before you see it on the screen, before it happens.
Okay.
So in chess, you can sit and plan and play accordingly to everything your opponent does, and it doesn't matter because you know what's like. There's no situation in chess where the opponent can basically retroactively make the correct decision. You know, what it seems like. So, like in a fighting game, this is not what actually is happening, but what it look like is happening is you're blocking low, the opponent sees that, and then they attack high. But what actually happened is they just attacked high, but you blocked it low. Neither player can actually react that quickly, it's just a series of moves that look like that, you know?
Okay.
That doesn't happen in chess. You know? Every player sees and acknowledges and sees all the different possible outcomes and situations each time a move is made.
I don't know how... I don't know. I don't think we're going to find common ground.
I mean, I'm just trying to explain a concept. This is not a thing to agree or disagree on. This is a fact.
I mean, it's... I get what you're saying, but I still don't think it applies to deception the way you're saying it.
So
does.
we're doing this one step at a time. I was just trying to explain what the unknown knowledge is, because you asked. This is what unknown knowledge is in fighting games. Like, I was going to go into explaining what deception is, but then you asked, what's unknown knowledge in fighting games? And then I tried to explain that. So this is unknown knowledge, like...
Okay, go ahead and continue with your point.
So, regardless of unknown knowledge, it's a similar thing in chess and in fighting games and in StarCraft. And this takes a while to get to in fighting games and in games like this in general, because it requires both players to have played the game for a long time and then know all the different possible situations, scenarios, so that there inherently is no actual unknown knowledge, just like kind of what looks like unknown knowledge to someone else. Once you know what all the possible options are at that point, rather than like, you're not trying to trick anyone because everyone knows the situation and everyone knows the possible outcomes in all the possible situations. So even though it becomes a guessing game in some scenarios, it's not possible to trick someone because they know what you're doing, what you could do. They just have to guess, you know? So similar in StarCraft. You know, if you're going to try to trick someone with like a proxy gate, you can't trick them. They know that you could be doing it or you could not be doing it, and they still take actions based on what they think is the likely scenario, or they make, hedges where they're like, this counts for both, but maybe it's not so strong against either one in particular. Like, there's no tricking in that case, it's just, like, you can trick people who are unaware of the situations, but when you get to a certain point, and it's usually, like, just any level of competitive play for those games, people know the situations and they know what to do, but it's a matter of them making a conscious decision that's bad, not you trick them into making a bad decision. Or they're unskilled at playing the game specifically, like they just can't do specific things as well as you can. And I don't think thinking otherwise means you're bad at games. It just means you haven't been in a competitive versus game seriously, like you haven't.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a part of competition. That's not being bad at games at all, Like, there are plenty of games that are played for fun that have, elements of tricking, and that's what they're about, But that's usually what makes them not competitive games.
I mean, I think the idea that there is zero deception in competitive games is... I think you're overestimating people by quite a bit.
I don't think so.
And I think people really commit to the wrong thing rather than hedging pretty often, because they're so sure that's what they're going to do. And I think it's evidenced pretty often. Even in real-world sports, it's kind of super important.
How so in sports?
So like in MMA, there are guys that specialize in like grappling, right?
Yeah.
And so they will approach like they normally do with the grapple, and then they kick the guy in the head and he gets knocked out because he trained grappling for 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
People end up banking on what they think their opponent's going to do, even if they know they shouldn't. Even if they know that they could be wrong, it doesn't change the fact that they think they're right. Like, I think you're overestimating people's rational ability by a lot. trick plays work for a reason. They don't work every time, but they're, you know, they do work. Like, there's a difference between knowing something's possible and actually believing
Right.
that it's going to happen.
And I made a distinction between, you know, not everyone hedges because they are super sure, but sometimes they're like, you know, sometimes I won't hedge something on the assumption that, like, you know, there's like a 90% chance that I'm right, so it doesn't make sense to hedge, you know, like.
Right. But if the other person set out with the intention to make you think that's what they were going to do, they've deceived you.
No, because I was still aware of the outcome. I just made a decision, you know.
I mean, I guess, but effectively, you made a boo-boo. You know?
No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a mistake, you know.
I mean, you lost, right?
It depends on the context there. Like, if it was in a more serious situation, like, you know, grand finals of some tournament or something, I would be a lot more likely to hedge my bets there, so that wouldn't happen. But if I was playing, like, if that situation happened in a ranked game, just on ladder or something, I wouldn't care. I wouldn't lose. Like, that would not be a mistake. Because if I were to make that hedge against everyone, you know, in 100 games, and I lose once to it because of it, I didn't hedge, as opposed to when if I do hedge it and then I lose, you know, like 20 games because I played too much to that possibility. You know, that's bad. You know.
Okay.
So it's not a mistake, and it's not losing in that scenario. And I don't think, you know, it doesn't. It depends on how important a single game is in that context.
I mean, let's assume you're trying to win.
No one wins 100% of their games, and that's part of understanding how to play, you know? Like, part of it is also understanding, like, the opponent's side, you know? What they're... If you play against someone that does that 10% play that wins against people, you know, you can sit and think, like, why do they do this? Does it actually win them most games? And most of the times, because it's the 10% play that no one does, you think about it, like, they're probably winning, you know, 10% of their games total.
So you're saying total win rate is what matters?
I'm saying it depends on the context. So I'm saying that wouldn't happen in a super serious game where every game counted. And then the games where that does happen is where, you know, people do cheesy strats and tricky plays on ladder and whatnot and win. Those guys win like 10% of the games, and then the guys that lose to that, or the guys they beat, are like winning most of the games, and it doesn't matter, you know?
I'm done. If you want to take over, you can. What do you call it?